nightmares, with this pandemic, it's beyond our worst nightmare. Nobody even expected that. We had to get drugged through impeachment, the shutdown, you name it. This Congress has seen it. And so it's great to kind of get back out on the campaign trail and talk to everybody about the good things that have been happening, the few that Congress has been able to get done, but also the challenges that remain. And the greatest challenge facing us right now is emerging from this pandemic, reinvigorating our economy. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. And restoring the great record that we had at the beginning of this year. And things are moving in that direction. Slowly but surely, businesses are starting to open up again, despite the best efforts of many governors like our own. We see a lot of people, unemployment rates going down. We see businesses expanding and opening back up. I just came from Bloom Makers. You ever see that hydroponic bulb that is available in the grocery stores? That's made, grown in Peru and South America, and then brought up here, distributed from Stuart Strat. And they've got a new Aurelius, I think is the name of it, that doesn't need water, doesn't need sunlight. It just grows, which even I can grow. So they're breaking the ground on their 25,000 square foot facility, creating new jobs and invigorating the economy here in the valley. So that's the kind of thing I'm excited about seeing after so much turmoil over the spring and the summer. It's good to see. So, but we have to get to where we need to be. We have got to re-elect Donald Trump, President of the United States, on November 3rd. Because Joe Biden, and what did Trump say his new nickname for? Biden. Slow Joe is a good one, but Biden.
Sleepy Joe.
He has said if his people tell him that he needs to shut it all down, he's going to shut it all down. We cannot have that happen. He has said he looks forward to a federal mask mandate. And I said, well, I'll obey a federal mask mandate when you show me where in the Constitution it says that you have the power to make me wear a mask. It doesn't say that. Sure enough. So we've got a lot of work to do between now and Election Day, and it is silly season. So you're going to see the worst kind of attacks, like we're seeing right now, against our men and women in uniform indirectly through Donald Trump, because it just shows the disrespect that the left has for our military when they're willing to create this mud attack against the president, our commander-in-chief. So that is going to come, and we just need to arm ourselves with the information and the data. One of my best responses that I like to give people on the left is, show me where he said that. Show me where he did that. Show me, and they can't. They said, well, this person said, this unnamed source, the Atlantic article had 4 unnamed sources. That's their MO. That's how they like to attack, is through unnamed sources that they won't reveal, and then they can create what they want to create, the narrative they want to create. So we have to fight back with the facts, and we've got the facts on our side. The best economy, lowest unemployment rate for any group you want to talk about. We can talk about minorities, we can talk about women, we can talk about any way you look at it. This economy was one of the best in the history of this country, not 6 short months ago. So let's get ourselves back there. To get there, not only do we have to re-elect Donald Trump, we have got to hold the Senate and send Mark Warner his walking papers.
Yes.
I don't know if y'all have met Daniel Gate. Many of you came down and saw him speak at Rouse. And he was up the valley, so I did get to travel with him and hear him. He's dynamic, he's engaging, he's spot on with his message. His story is just so uplifting, and he tells it very well. And his wife's an even better speaker than he is. If you get the chance, his wife has come to 2 openings of GOP offices and has spoken and has done so just in amazing fashion. So they are a great team traveling around the Commonwealth, and I think that it can happen. I think turnout is going to be a challenge because in Northern Virginia, they really want to come out and vote against the president, and then they're just going to check the box for Mark Warner. We've got to give them a reason otherwise, and by telling Daniel's story, because he's not going to have the money, he doesn't have the pack full of dollars that Mark Warner has, then, crazier things have happened, and lightning can strike, so I'm optimistic that Daniel Gage will do well in this November's election. And then, with your help, I would be honored to be sent back to do battle with Nancy Pelosi, and to get that accomplished, and kick her out as Speaker of the House. That has been one of the greatest challenges of the last 2 years for me, is going from 16 years in the state legislature in the majority to the minority, and watching the left abandon all pretense of what they're trying to do. They don't even hide it anymore. It is socialism writ large, nationalized health care, do away, open borders. It is really scary, and it's happening in Richmond too right now. I feel good about the future of the Commonwealth of Virginia because I understand you had Rich Anderson here to speak to you. He was victorious at the convention in unseating Jack Wilson, and is our new RPV chairman. And Rich Anderson knows how to do battle up in Northern Virginia. He knows how to run, and he knows how to win. Now, he's also been beaten in Northern Virginia, but he also knows that you get elected in Northern Virginia with money and message, and he is going to restore both of those to RPV, something that's been lacking for many, many years, quite frankly, at RPV. So Rich is setting the course. He's recruiting candidates so that we will have candidates in every one of our state house and state senate districts next year. I think that's critical. And then hopefully we are going to, regardless of who's in the White House, capture the governor's mansion and retake either the state house or the state senate, so we can start developing a firewall against some of these truly horrifying things that are happening down in Richmond. The rolling back of the abolition of parole and all that George Allen did for truth in sentencing in Virginia made us, well, it's a nightmare. What George Allen did was to make us the state with the lowest recidivism rate for criminals in the country. We are the best when it comes to reoffending, the lack of reoffending. So if it ain't broke, why are they trying to fix it? That's what and you only have to turn on the TV and see what is going on, not just in Portland, not just in Seattle, not just in Kenosha, but in Richmond, to see that a rule of law administration is necessary in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in the mayor's office in Richmond. It's lacking, and it needs to be restored. I understand the Democrats want to bring back the ticket from 2013 to run. They have Terry McAuliffe running again. Now they got their Attorney General running again. All they need is their Lieutenant Governor to run again. Oh wait, that was Ralph Northam. So if he wants to, I want him to go off and into retirement. I don't want him to run for any office ever again. But they've got about a dozen candidates running for Lieutenant Governor because it's a do-nothing office, and they're a do-nothing party. So that's what they figure the best office for the Democrats to have is the Lieutenant Governor's office. So I won't go on too long, but Washington, you know, it's fundamentally broken. I said it was when I was running 2 years ago. It's confirmed everything I thought it was. They can't get budgets passed. They can't get appropriations bills passed. We limp from continuing resolution to continuing resolution, which is just kicking the can down the road as we try and address the coronavirus. And unfortunately, when you have Speaker Pelosi trying to push through a $3 trillion bill, multiple times what the CARES Act was at the height of the pandemic, and you have a Senate that says we need liability reform for businesses who are getting sued, we need liability reform for schools that are just now starting to open up, and the kids get COVID in the schools, the teachers get COVID, they're going to start suing the school districts. You have universities that need liability reform. We need some protections from frivolous lawsuits and those dirty trial lawyers. And I'm a recovering trial lawyer. But we need that kind of thing coming from the Senate. And when Pelosi says, well, I won't give you these needed liability reforms without you giving us trillions of dollars borrowed from China, then I'm not going to give you a deal. So the coronavirus bills, which were bipartisan for the first 3 or 4, have gone the wayside. And now they're bringing us back to vote on things like save the post office bills, when they say they want more money and they want a rollback of the reforms that they're doing. And we already provided them more money in the CARES Act, and the Postmaster General's already said he's rolling back the reforms we did. So it's blatantly political when they bring us back to do stuff that's already being done. And that's what she's about. She's about politics all the way through, and she is trying to secure her majority for the next 2 years so that they can push through this legislative agenda, put it on a President Biden's desk, and have him or Kamala moving his arm to sign it, because she's going to be calling the shots. She's going to be the one calling the shots, and we know that the agenda that he signs is not going to be his agenda. It's going to be the far left's agenda. It's going to be the socialist agenda of Kamala Harris, who is the #1 most liberal senator. And that's saying something when you got Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas in the Senate. That you're the most liberal. It's going to be Nancy Pelosi's agenda. It's going to be the squad's agenda. It's going to be the same thing that we're seeing in Richmond right now. So Virginia, I know the left likes to talk about being woke. I'm talking about the right being awake. We are awake in Virginia because we see what's happening in Richmond. We don't want it to happen in Washington, so we got to get to it. So I asked for your help this fall. Tyler's my campaign manager. He is based here in Harrisonburg, but we are on the sign trail right now and on the door knocking. I'd love to do some door knocking this fall, even though some people might not be comfortable with that. If you're willing, that'd be great. Doing some phone calls, that would be great. We've still got time to register people. We've still got time to sign people up for absentee ballots. The balloting is going to be safe. The balloting is going to be secure. In Virginia, they're trying to put some stuff through that would take away a lot of that security. Drop boxes. In Virginia, they don't want to have drop boxes like they do in California. They want to have the people who collect the ballots. Their name has escaped. What do they call it?
Ballot harvesters.
Harvesters. Ballot harvesters like they have in California, and that's going to ensure that the election day will not decide who wins. It's going to be the days and weeks after that when we're all sitting around and when it looks like Republicans have won, and the Democrats are saying, we've harvested more ballots. Here are more ballots we've harvested. Here's more that we find. What's that?
They already have them waiting to bring out. They just have to know how many.
So, and they want to start counting now. Have you heard that? That's the latest. Is that around states they want to start counting now so they know exactly how many they need on election day. And that's, the kind of stuff we can't see. We cannot allow that kind of thing to happen, in the Joe Biden presidency or a continued Pelosi speakership. That's what we're looking at. So we're gonna keep up the fight. I appreciate all the help and support. Happy to answer any questions, and God bless. Thank you all for everything you do. Now I'm gonna get my soda. Anybody have a question for me?
Well, I do, nobody else.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, thank you.
The balloting has been mailed out, ballots have been mailed out, and will come back, they're not postmarked, so we don't know when they were actually posted. What if we go past the deadline of having a president? Who takes control of the charge?
My understanding is, now, this is tricky because it would have to happen in a very specific way. Essentially, you would have to be able to certify a majority of House members are elected. So even in the states where there are problems with the balloting, you're still gonna have to have enough certainty to say, well, in Virginia, we don't know who won the Senate, we don't know who won the presidency, but we know Ben Cline was elected to the House, so he gets to go and be sworn in on January 3rd. But
As far as presidents.
as far as president, because you have to have a House to approve the electoral vote, the House has to be in. So you have to have the House elected, and then you have to have a question about the electoral votes. If there is a question and the president and the vice president are not in office, or there hasn't been a decision by the electors to vote, technically it's the third. That House that elects the speaker in January, that's the speaker who would become president by the vacancy of the president and vice president. So technically it could be Nancy Pelosi, but the Constitution has a number of checks in there where if, for example, if no candidate gets to 270, it goes to the House. And the House votes on who wins. Now, if you play that game where you divvy up the states, if you go to realpolitics.com, it lets you play the game. You can assign the states to whoever wins. And there are ways to get to 269 pretty easily with the way the states have fallen. And if that happens and it goes to the House, you know how the votes are counted in the House of Representatives? Not by, I don't have one vote as a member of the House of Representatives for president. You know who does? The state of Virginia. So the state of Virginia will have one vote for president, and there will be 50 votes, and whoever gets a majority of those 50 state votes will become president. Now, Virginia's majority Democrat, so Virginia will vote for Biden. But Republicans control the majority of the state delegations in the U.S. House of Representatives right now. So technically, you could have a situation where the popular vote is not for Trump and he doesn't get an electoral college victory, but if it goes to the House of Representatives, he still wins. So it's an interesting dynamic. Yes, ma'am.
Have they figured out how to find out if you're voting for dead people and also for people who vote in this state and also in this state are moving?
Cleaning up the voter rolls is something that needs to be done on I would love to see it on a national level, but it is kind of a patchwork at the state level. We haven't been able to do it in Virginia because the Democrats have blocked it. They love people staying on the rolls being out there to the point where that you don't have a solid list of who is truly eligible because it's got so many names that have been
Isn't that a
Yeah, absolutely.
How can they get away with that?
Just through inaction, just not dealing with the roles, ensures that there will be unaccounted for people on there that would leave it open to greater possible misuse.
That's not a fair election.
Well, it adds doubt to it, that's for sure. Yes, sir.
If we change something, the Democrats might get an advantage, is an answer that I get when I ask this question. The Supreme Court requires a lawyer experienced at arguing at the highest level. You're a trained prosecutor. I would ask you to file a suit to reestablish the original division of constitutional sphere of powers as listed in Article 1, Section 7. Will you ever be willing to prosecute this case and oppose tyranny and save the American Revolution?
And the conversation that we're having is about the proper spheres of government outlined in the Constitution. I think we've gone way beyond what the founders intended, not just in terms of scope, but when it comes to our role as the House, I believe we have a responsibility to not give to the Supreme Court get questions and let them decide what's constitutional. We have the responsibility to decide what is constitutional and only pass legislation that is constitutional. So I'm happy to talk to you about ways to rein that in. I'm party to a lawsuit right now against actions by the House. Because of COVID and because most of the Democratic leadership is over 80, they are petrified of coming back to Washington. So they threw the Constitution out the window, especially the section where it says that you have to have a quorum of elected members present to do business and do the business of the House. They have said, well, that we can have a proxy voting system where I can give my vote to somebody else. They can take it to Washington and vote for me. That counts. It doesn't. They had that system in the 18th century. You could give your vote. Thomas Jefferson could give his vote to James Madison, but that wasn't allowed because you had to be there. And so I'm part of a suit, and it was initially ruled against us that the Speaker has the ability to determine, the House has the ability to set its own rules, but we're going to appeal it because it's only insofar as what the Constitution tells us our powers are.
Well, the court could straighten this out in 10 minutes, just as they did with busing in Boston. They just went in and seized it and said, do it right.
Well, that was a matter of the court going in and saying, you're local government, you must do this. And they can't do that with an equal branch of government.
I think they can.
I don't think that would be an issue of the court oversetting its balance.
No, it's just reapplying the document as it's written.
Okay.
But anyway, okay.
Well, we can keep talking about that.
You mentioned earlier that you're somewhat confident that our absentee ballot system is working here in Virginia.
Yes.
Would you just reiterate that to
Yes.
bring comfort to us?
So the absentee ballot system, which relies on you taking the initiative, it is not a mail-in ballot system where you just mail everybody on the list, however wrong it is, a ballot, and then they get to send them in, and the state is awash in unfilled ballots and bad addresses and return ballots. This is an instance where you contact the registrar and say, here's my address, I want a ballot. They send it to us. It is I know in some states it's barcoded. I'm not sure if it's barcoded here in Virginia, but it is mailed to you at the address you give them, and then you are technically supposed to have a witness that's been waived for the pandemic, but you fill out your ballot and send it back to the registrar. That's a secure way to do it. Now you have to return your ballot by a date certain, and that date is far enough in advance in Virginia where the Postal Service is going to, most of the time, get it back to the registrar in time. This same day, deadline of election day kind of thing, that's just guaranteeing it's going to go past election day. So what I do is I will either go into my registrar starting September 18th, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will fill out an absentee in person. Vote right there, there's never a line. And my vote's counted.
You could do it curbside.
And you can do it curbside, right? The other thing you can do is request a ballot be sent to you, and then take it to the registrar's office and hand it to the person who is legally allowed to accept it. That's what irks me about these harvesters and boxes and things. You don't know who's going to collect the boxes. You don't know who's going to harvest your ballot. You don't know. And so these developments in Richmond are a real concern for me. But right now, you can only go give it to the registrar, and it's a secure way to vote absentee. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for last Friday visiting the east part of the county, Elkton. And,
Yeah, that's
a lot
fantastic.
of good comments. The businessmen and citizens appreciate your visit there.
New brewery there. It's a good brewery.
I have a question about a new legislation introduced in the House.
Okay.
Republican out of Florida, Representative Hoyle.
Yoho.
That's right.
He's the one who allegedly had that conversation with AOC on the steps.
That's him.
Ted Yoho. He's retiring at the end of this year.
He's introduced the TIPA, Taiwan Invasion Prevention Act.
Okay.
I wonder if you've had a chance to look at it and what your thoughts are on protecting Taiwan from the same thing that's happened to Hong Kong, where the Communist Chinese have usurped freedom and liberty of Hong Kong and basically prevent them from asserting their will on the people of Taiwan.
Well, I have not had a chance to read it, so I do think we need to continue to strengthen those relations and defend their people's right to liberty and freedom, because what we see from China is that they're not our friends. They are more than just an adversary. I would characterize them as an enemy, but we need to treat them as such. And with all that's going on with the virus and their misinformation, we have a China task force that is Republican, all Republican right now. It was going to be bipartisan, and we actually had a commitment from the Democrats up until the day that it was announced, and they pulled out at the last minute and said, no, we're not going to do this because China's, we love our relationship with China, apparently. We do need to stand up for Taiwan and make sure we defend their freedom as well. So I'll look at the bill and do what I can to help. Yes, Laura?
You mentioned it before, but that mailing we got with the ballot, now Trump doesn't want us to vote absentee ballot, so that couldn't have been from the Trump people.
So what we got was a mailing from a left-leaning group about a month ago where you were mailed an absentee ballot application.
Right.
And apparently the address you were supposed to send back to was wrong. I've got a lot of hearsay on that because I didn't get one. But Trump's mailing out the same thing. I did get one from Trump.
But he doesn't want us to vote absentee.
Sure he does. He doesn't want, he thinks mail-in balloting is ripe for fraud, and he doesn't want states to adopt mail-in balloting like California has. So Nevada and New Jersey, was it New Jersey that just the governor decided to go ahead and mail everybody a ballot, I think.
Yep.
That is truly, is against the law in the state that it was done in. And so the administration's suing over that. So he doesn't want that to happen, but if there's a legal system set up like we have in Virginia, go ahead and vote absentee because it's safe.
Well, I'd just go to the local registrar's
Good.
office and vote in person, because that actually goes in a machine.
Yeah. You can vote
Or
on
the
it.
absentee precinct.
Yes, sir.
I just retired as a high school teacher, and one of the things that I showed my students, because so often they don't know the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion, and most of us don't.
Right.
I said, if somebody paid you $1 a minute, how long would it take for you to become a millionaire? If they paid you $1 a minute, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it would take you just less than 2 years to become a millionaire. I said, okay, at that same $60 an hour, how long would it take you to become a billionaire? And they'll guess all kinds of things. It's almost 2,000 years at $60 an hour. At $60 an hour to become a trillionaire, it would take you 2 million years to become a trillionaire. If you took a stack of $1,000 bills to make $1 million, it's 4.6 inches tall. If you take a stack of $1,000 bills to equal $1 billion, it's 358 feet tall.
Oh my God.
If you take a stack of $1,000 bills to equal $1 trillion, it's 69 miles high. $1,000 bills.
That's amazing.
If you were $1 bills, it's to the moon and back 5.5 times.
That's the kind of.
And I share that with my students because they're getting ready to vote.
That's good. That's great.
I have a personal one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Last Wednesday, President Trump said he was going to extend the honey, can you get him some more to drink? Okay. Last Wednesday, President Trump said he was going to extend the eviction notice until 2021, talking about our retirement is around. And, so we still have expenses going, we still have expenses going on. We still have the Homeowners Association, $150 a month repairs, et cetera. What is the president willing to do for the landlords? That some of them still have mortgages, we're fortunate we don't.
There is a concern that the solutions that are being proposed right now are not balanced solutions. And we all sympathize with renters who, during this pandemic, are losing their jobs and their situations being exacerbated by not being able to pay their rent, having to seek other accommodations. That is a problem. The governor's trying to do something, the president wants to do something. I've heard that the CDC has intervened and said that with appropriate paperwork from the CDC that you cannot be evicted per the administration's ruling. I question that because that's an unelected bureaucracy saying we're going to intervene in a contractual situation between you and your renter as a landlord, which I don't believe they have the power to do.
I believe what they said was those that are in federal, if you have a federally, insured mortgage,
Which is everybody.
or if you have, or if you're living in, federal housing or,
Okay.
they cannot be evicted. But our
So it's
tenants.
limited, more limited than what I
Right,
said.
our tenants, if they
That
don't
may be.
pay the rent, we can evict them.
Well, you better get a lawyer's opinion on that because, there are a lot of things happening for renters and not a lot of protections being put in place for landlords
Right.
to get compensated to pay their mortgages because, if you're renting out a place, more than likely you got a mortgage on the place you're renting out to somebody and that's paying the mortgage.
And
The rest
utility
you get.
companies aren't being very kind to people
if there's any assistance is given, but that it should also be originating at the state level, because you have different scenarios happening in different places. Different states are handling the pandemic differently, and that's part of it is the top down. The Trump administration did respond appropriately because they said this needs to happen from the state level, depending on how bad the pandemic is in your state. So you had Florida with very few cases reacting very differently from New York, and you shouldn't have a one-size-fits-all treatment of this pandemic. Even though it's crossing state lines, you need to involve federal agencies, and that's what we did. But for rentals questions, it should be a state administered response, and North and East to put in a more balanced perspective when it comes to rental relief. Anybody else? Well, let's get to it this fall, waiting November 3rd. I appreciate everybody's help.